Wow, hi, what's up, buddy?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, sir.
How you doing? Did you get a new camera?
I'm doing good. No, I moved.
Oh, how's your new place?
It's nice. My upstairs neighbors, I think, are morbidly obese because the ceiling cracks every time they get out of bed.
Holy Are you worried about them like coming through the ceiling at you?
No, but I am worried about being able to get my REM sleep, which is very important.
True. The
How
most
are you?
important, some would say. Um, I'm okay. Just, streaming and memeing.
Yeah, what were you watching?
Just this whole, there's like an Unfuck America tour that turned into a fiasco, and I've been kind of following that.
Is that Dean Withers and crew?
Yeah, or was, yeah.
Or was?
Well, they're now all of them have dissociated from it because the organizer was incredibly racist because she went into a group of black women that were saying that it was sloppily organized and shitty or whatever online, and she said, "You guys are kind of like trashing all my organizers for no reason." And then they all started screaming at her, and she was like, "I don't know why you guys are shouting at me." And then they said, saying that black women are shouting isn't actually a racist microaggression, and now everybody left the event. I wish I was like giving you a meme recapture, or a recap, but that is exactly what happened. Yeah.
This sounds like why Donald Trump won.
Part of it, maybe, maybe. I almost made me want to go vote in the past for Donald Trump a little bit, but
That's fair. All right, well, you said you watched my video of destroying one of your cult members who accused me of hiding behind irony to conceal my power level.
was that what he was doing? Or maybe a little bit.
He had a 27 slide PowerPoint.
Jesus. Wait, hold on. Let
Yeah.
me check real quick. February 9th. Wait, that's not it. Fuck. What was the name of this video?
Something like Destiny Fran confronts me.
Destiny fan confronts me for hiding behind
Confronts,
humor
yeah.
to avoid.
Meaning what?
Oh no! Wait, when does he bring up the PowerPoint?
I skipped the PowerPoint.
Oh, you skipped it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I do appreciate when people come on stream with prepared materials and prepared notes, but
But then you skipped
27
You skipped it. So
correct. I have a 26 slide limit and he had 27.
Okay. Well, let the record show that bad faith interlocutor.
True. What did you find interesting in it or worthy of conversation?
I guess I was just curious on. I'm just curious why you're such a fucking Nazi, dude. You hate Jewish people. I know it. Just admit it. No. Something that's always been really interesting to me, as somebody with a background in music, is you have like, broadly speaking, there's like two big ways to kind of evaluate something. I'm making a false dichotomy. People talk about like an objective evaluation and a subjective evaluation, right? So in some ways, we can objectively evaluate musical performance. So for instance, we might say something along the lines of like, this piano piece is incredibly difficult, and the piano player is like a virtuoso. He played incredibly well. It was an incredibly skillful performance. Or we might say things like an objective statement might be, this person utilized a really wide range of instruments. It's impressive that he, that he had so much going on, in this performance, whatever. Maybe something like that, right? We're pointing to things that like, it's not really a matter of like taste or subjectivity. It's like you're just kind of like objectively evaluating some measures of a thing. And then we've got this other category called subjectivity. And usually subjectivity is where our I like this thing statements come in. And they can be informed by objective things. So for instance, somebody might say like, I really like math rock. And oftentimes a player's just objective ability to play the notes is going to inform how much they subjectively appreciate the music. But we recognize that that subjectivity thing feels a little bit different than the objectivity thing, or feels quite different. And I guess the thing that I was interested in picking your brain on, I'm just curious how you think through this. I don't have any, by the way, hard answers to any of this. It's just stuff that I was kind of thinking when I was listening to you talk to the other guy, is sometimes it feels like when people say subjective, it feels like they're almost equivocating. And when they say subjective, they almost are meaning like arbitrary or unmeasurable. And I'm going to give you an observation, and then you can go and chat on this, okay? Even though we would say something like whether or not you enjoy a particular type of food or whether or not you enjoy, a particular musical piece, we would call these things like your subjective preferences. However, a whole bunch of people seem to have an alignment on subjective preferences in terms of things they like. So so I'm just, go for it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, subjective and objective are, in my opinion, terrible terms, and I think this whole discussion is ruined in part because we are using those terms.
Okay. You can use different words if you want, by the way. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's your fault. I'm saying I don't think we have good terms. There's the concept of transjectivity, which is sort of objective statements about subjective claims. But like with music, it's like, you can make objective statements about music theory. Like music theory has objective,
like rules and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, circle of fifths. But it's basically a layer of objectivity built on things that are fundamentally subjective, like the quality of music, why we respond positively to the quality of music.
Okay.
And so that's, the idea that like objective is fact and subjective is opinion. I don't know. That's too simplified.
Let me ground it out a little bit more philosophically. So subjectivity will ground out in some sort of like unfalsifiable preference, right? I can tell you,
Correct.
I like Taking Back Sunday, and you can never attack me on that statement. I can just say, I like Taking Back Sunday. I don't care if you agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. I can say, I like that band.
Is that a band?
Okay. Fuck you. How old are you again? 22?
28.
Okay, I'm sorry. I like Drake. There. Is that better for you? Okay. I like Drake.
Drake's my favorite. I like to model my personality after Drake.
Yeah, okay. And then you can't attack me on that because that's my subjective preference. I like that music, right?
Correct.
I think that when you look at objective stuff, God, I wish I knew more prob logic. Mathematical truths are such that when you define a set of fundamental axioms, I think the current set right now is ZFC. It's like a set theory. But when you define this set and you create identities, you can generate statements from this set of things, and those statements are necessarily true because they follow rules of logic within that system. So for instance, 1 + 1 = 2, assuming we've proven our whole set of mathematical axioms, that statement is true in a different way than the statement, I like Green Day, right? Because we have something that we're looking towards objectively. Much the same that I could say something like, in this piece, the piece ends in an unresolved manner, and you can see that because there's a music theory has constructed a set of rules, and maybe it ends on some half authenticators or whatever bullshit. It's like, oh, it's unresolved, right? And that could be like an objective analysis. Or there's a solo piece. Traditionally, this piece is done with a whole band. They did it with one piano. That was a solo piano piece, right? So yeah, so this is kind of a difference I'm looking for, I guess, when it comes to objectivity versus subjectivity. Also, we don't even have to draw this distinction. I was just pointing out that I hear people say the word subjective a lot. And sometimes it feels like they're saying like, oh, it's like arbitrary. It's like, subjective doesn't necessarily mean arbitrary. We have a lot of similar preferences.
Right.
Stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. What is this in the I guess what is I'll better understand where this is coming from. Like what is this all in the context of? Like why?
Sometimes when people I'm not accusing you of doing this. Maybe you did do this, but if you did, I don't remember, but I'm not accusing you of doing this. Sometimes people will say something. This is a statement that actually triggers the fuck out of me. Maybe we'll have a big disagreement here. I don't like it when people say comedy is subjective, and it feels like sometimes they say that as a way to escape all analysis. This is oftentimes done when it comes to analyzing like edgy humor. People will say something like, I swear to God, I'm not targeting you with this. I don't remember what your argument was on this, but these are just thoughts I had. But
no, it's fine.
Somebody will do like a whole skit, and it'll be a thing on like, well, who would win? Like 1 ape or 100 guys? It's like, well, what if it was 100 black guys, like 8 versus, like, it's like, okay. And then you tell these jokes, you're like, geez, like, that feels like kind of racist or whatever. It's like, excuse me, that's comedy, and comedy is subjective. And it's like, okay, Well, like, sure, it can, like, we can have subjective interpretations of it, but like we can still make statements broadly about the comedy itself, even if the interpretations of how much somebody likes it are subjective. And sometimes it feels like people, wield subjectivity to escape any type of actual analysis of the thing itself. Is the feeling I have, yeah.
I agree, 100%. I guess what are you trying to understand? What do you think I think that is different from what you think that you're trying to understand with this line of questioning? Like, what is a position I have on the subject of comedy?
Okay.
Or I don't know, on philosophy more broadly.
Do you know who okay, I love everybody talking about it. Do you know who J-Reg is?
Of course.
Okay, I love J-Reg. I like him personally. Okay. And I like some of the stuff he does, okay? One of the things that I don't think is possible is like when you talk about like irony, in my mind, irony has to have a point to it. Otherwise, it's just kind of like absurdist nonsense. And one of the issues that I have sometimes, people ask me about like J-Reg stuff, is that like sometimes it feels like, I don't even want to say irony for the sake of irony. It just feels like a little bit kind of like XD random because there's not as much of a point. And I would contrast this to somebody like, do you watch like, I think we've talked about like Sam Hyde before, right?
Have we talked about Sam Hyde before?
I don't remember. Do you ever watch any of his stuff?
I don't recall.
Oh, fuck. Okay. In my opinion, people get triggered when I say this, but I think Sam Hyde is probably the best like wielder of irony or satire of anybody that I've ever seen, because he makes a ton of ironic jokes, but like it's very obvious when he's making his ironic jokes who the target is or like what he's like joking about. Like, oh, I get it. It's funny because of this thing. Yeah. And I guess when I watched, so sometimes I think, I'm trying to remember, it was a while ago when I watched this conversation. We should have just talked immediately. See, but you schedule these days and days out so that I don't remember, and now you've defanged me. No, I'm just kidding.
You should improve your memory.
I think this might have had to do with like the Zog stuff or something like this. I guess when I was listening to supposedly my fan, now allegedly my fan, okay, when I see him fighting with you, the feeling that I got a little bit was you were defending kind of like this pointless, aimless irony a little bit. But I remembered, and then I kind of wondered, like, well, maybe. I
think I know what you're referring to. My point was.
Oh, here, right, real quick. I was gonna say, because maybe your understanding of irony and mine are different, and I just disagree with your understanding of it. But then I remembered how I know of you originally, and it's because you made the League of Legends videos, and those videos were those weren't like what goofy random jokes can I make about Destiny, right? It was here is a
targeted.
But they all had like a point. They referred to, that's why they were so funny. Yeah. So
humor in service of a higher
kind of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, yeah, go talk. Yeah, I'm just curious. Also, this truly is not. I'm not trying to catch your debate. I was just curious for your thoughts.
I know.
Yeah,
I believe you.
Okay.
I believe you.
So if you,
I do come from the J-Regian school of comedic philosophy, which I think is derivative of a Burnhamite school of philosophy. But the J-Reg, and actually J-Reg has a video on irony, post-irony, and meta-irony, which I believe iDubbbz referenced in his Sam Hyde Circle of Irony video. But essentially there's sincerity, which is me telling you what I really believe. Mm-hmm. Hey, I genuinely think that the far right and far left are, both bad, but they have some good ideas that need to be addressed. Okay, that's what I sincerely believe. And there's irony of like, oh no, I definitely love the far right or the far left. Like, I love the far left. No, yeah, totally. That's irony. Then there's post-irony, which is like, no, which is like me just telling you 2 seconds ago that I don't remember if we talked about Sam Hyde or not. That's post-irony, because I do remember that we did talk about that, and I'll never forget that.
Okay.
But then there's meta-irony, which is when the person, according to J-Reg, this is the person communicating, isn't even sure of what their own belief is on the topic. Mm-hmm. And what I was telling your fan, Nick, thank God for Nick, who arranged this whole conversation. Look at what one person can do in the world just by criticizing their second most hated streamer. Is meta-irony is I make a joke or something, I'm not, the meaning of the joke is uncertain because it reflects a genuine level of uncertainty for me. The example I gave with him is like the example of Irish nationalism. Like, if you pose the question of like, do I support the idea of Ireland for the Irish, or Japan for the Japanese, or Israel as a Jewish state, all that different stuff. Part of me is like, no, fuck ethnocentrism. That's ridiculous. I'm an American. Everyone should be like me. We're God's true chosen people. But then the other part of me is like, well, I do believe my American sensibilities are best, but I also don't necessarily think it would be better if there were no Irish, or that Ireland was not mostly Irish, in the same way that if Japan was not mostly Japanese. And even in principle, if Israel was not mostly a Jewish state. I can, even though I'm very critical of Israel and their actions and whatnot, in theory, I don't know, I suppose I could be convinced in the validity of an ethno-state, maybe. Although, as of right now, my gut instinct is like, no, fuck that. But I don't know. So, like, if I make a joke of, like, I love, I don't know what the IRA, are they coming back? The Irish National Republican Army, whatever. So if I make a joke and it's like, wait, is he supportive of Irish nationalism? I can't really tell. It's like, that's because it's genuinely reflective of a real split in me.
I would say,
and in that case, I think it's perfectly acceptable to do.
Sure. I would say in that case, semantically, I don't think that's meta irony. I think in a way it's irony. I think that there's a difference between being unclear about what you are showcasing versus showcasing a lack of clarity. So, for instance, when people look at the Congress in the United States right now, and they say Congress is dysfunctional because they're not passing any legislation, I look at Congress and I go, are they dysfunctional because they're not passing any legislation? Or is Congress actually accurately resembling the American people right now, who are historically insanely divided? Now, if it was the case that all the people were kind of like, we really need to do a couple things, and Congress just wasn't doing it, like, oh, that is pretty dysfunctional. That's not good. Congress is dysfunctional. They're not passing any legislation. But if somebody looks at Congress now, they go, Congress is really dysfunctional. They're not passing any legislation. I go, no, they might be dysfunctional, kind of, but that dysfunction is actually a representation of the dysfunction of the American people. All that to say that if you were to make a joke about, I went to sign up for a sporting event, and, I wasn't even sure what gender category to sign up for or whatever, because all these new terms or whatever, right? You say some joke like this or whatever, I don't know, right? Now,
yeah, I like the joke of, ever since I got my COVID shot, I started slicing my golf shots.
What does that mean?
Like,
I don't even know what it means to
slicing.
slice a golf shot.
It means hooking hook is left. It means hitting your golf ball way further right than you wanted.
Is that that's
so the
bad,
joke
I'm
is like,
guessing?
yeah, that's bad.
Oh.
You don't want to do that.
Okay.
And so ever since I got my COVID shot, I've been slicing my golf shots. And the joke is like, well, wait, are you actually against a COVID shot? Because you have been slicing your golf shots. And I'm like, are you? Is this like a, well, how many cookies in the oven type joke? Where you say something that's innocuous but means something else.
Sure. But I would say that like that. So we would have to look at the context of like a whole thing. But I would say generally that type of joke, the joke is that I think the vaccines are probably not safe, right?
Yeah, or it's like, or I'm willing to make a joke like that because I'm not sure.
Sure. Although, well, it communicates more on one side, I think, than the other side, right?
True, but again, look, it all comes back to intention, right?
No, but go ahead.
Okay.
I disagree.
Well, that's fair. It doesn't all come back to intention. All is a strong word. I don't know. I guess, again, I'm trying to understand if there's a specific. I welcome disagreement. If you think I am approaching things suboptimally, it'd be helpful to know in particular where we disagree, and then I can more latch onto that. But
or I guess the goal. I guess the question would be, what is the goal sometimes with your humor stuff?
The goal is to say what I genuinely believe to be true as best as I can. Express it would be more accurate, because use comedy and irony, and then trust that is the best outcome. That whatever happens produces the best outcome, which is a statement of faith, and one that I do not have a rational justification for.
I guess a question would be is, do you think, is your goal to be understood, or is your goal to just like create something and then have that stand on its own, and what comes of it is what comes of it?
Is my goal to be understood?
Yeah.
I think that's one of my goals. Yes, it would be helpful to be if I was speaking in gibberish, wouldn't be very helpful. My goal is to express my perceptions of the world as best as I can. Like, my goal is to communicate to you and to whoever is foolish enough to listen to me how I genuinely perceive the world, and not say for certain that that's true. Although, you know, it's unavoidable if I say, like, yeah, evolution's true. I believe evolution's true. Well, it's like, technically, I believe evolution is like 99.8% true. Whatever. I don't know what my priors are. It's all, you could put random numbers on it. But, like, yeah, I believe the act. This is the OG Jordan Peterson axiom in a nutshell, which I, like, have internalized as basically my religion. Not entirely because he's articulated. He has the best articulation of it, but I've seen it in my own life, just at every level of analysis in terms of, like, my personal interactions and personal relationships up to, I don't know, broader politics, how it plays out. It's like the optimal way to exist is to say and to express what you believe to be true as best as you can, and then trust that whatever happens as a result from that is a positive consequence. So, you know, for example, I often go into, I just had a debate with Pisco, and I put it on my channel. It's called "Debating a Lawyer About Donald Trump Using Pure Vibes."
Okay.
So obviously that's a meme title,
yeah.
right? And it's like, well, because people would say, "Oh, Paul, you know, you're so stupid. You say all these things that are so dumb." Blah blah blah. Stuff. It's like, well, that's irrelevant to me. What matters is what I'm observing the consequences of me doing these things. This is my fourth conversation with you. The last conversation went a little off the rails, I would say. And by any objective standard, you might say, well, this was very dumb. You know, Paul came off really stupid and stuff. And perhaps I did. And in some ways, I absolutely did. And I would agree with that. But that's beneficial to me because I can observe my reaction to that, other people's reaction to that, and if need be, check and adjust accordingly. And I think that people are interested in that inherently, of genuinely trying to understand, like, what exactly is going through Paul's mind, not like, you know, hiding power level and all that dumb shit, which so many fucking, I think, people do, and it's lame and uninteresting, and I don't like. Yeah, I don't want to hear Jordan Peterson fucking pontificate about topic XYZ if he's not going to get, like, I want to know exactly what he thinks about what Israel is doing because he's aligned himself with an organization that's friendly to Netanyahu. Like, I want to know that. And to the degree that he's not communicating that, his honest beliefs on what I regard as a consequential issue, it's totally uninteresting.
Okay. What do you think is your, I don't want to use words like obligation because that's cringe, but, like,
what's my responsibility as a content creator?
It's not even really responsibility as a content creator. So, so you use this word intention, and I said I totally disagree with you, right? And I'm sure I'm going to talk.
Well, yeah, I may have used it incorrectly because I'm not sure exactly where the.
Well, sure,
you're right, it doesn't all come down to intention.
Yeah, well, obviously the point I'm making, or I'm going to make, is that there's going to be some degree of subjective interpretation of an audience, and you kind of have to be aware a little bit of how an audience interprets stuff. Otherwise, you might end up, you know, missing the message. Yeah.
100%. Yes. And you should use different language when talking to different audiences. The word liberal means the exact opposite to right-wingers and to progressives. To progressives, liberal means right-wing, as in neoliberal. And to right-wingers, liberal means left-wing, as in progressive.
Sure, kind of, yeah. Okay. Fine. I didn't have, like, a super specific topic. I was just curious on your...
That's fair. Why were you curious in particular?
I don't talk about these topics too much, and it was just interesting to...
Interesting. Why me?
Because you seem like you spend a lot of time obsessing over these topics, and usually the people that can have the best conversations are people that spend a great deal of time digging into something rather than just kind of, like, regurgitating the top line off of a tweet about a particular thing. So, and it seems like you spend a lot of time thinking about these things, right?
I do spend a lot of time thinking about these things. Have I aided you at all? In this 20 minutes?
No, not too much, but we didn't stumble on any disagreement areas at all. Did you own that guy who debated you? I just realized I think I only watched about half of the video, and then I DM'd you, and I was like, oh, we should chat. And
no, I don't own people.
Oh, really?
I have productive conversations, and then I derive information from that.
Gotcha. What do you think's a big thing? Wait, I'm curious. You said you changed your mind. I think we watched a video. You said you changed your mind on the Zog thing. Why?
I said I'm done doing the autistic mission of let me try and basically play an undercover agent. I'll go into all these anti-Semitic circles and spaces and use their language and then try to convert them. I think that's cringe and autistic because it's like if I tell a joke and 50% of people laugh, it doesn't matter how accurately I describe the reasons why 50% of people found it funny. The other 50% are not going to find it funny. And so me sitting here explaining like, well, Zog is technically a good meme because it sounds like Evil Emperor Zurg. It is a Zionist and not Jewish. And so in some sense, it's like, it's like the anti-Semites who use it. It's like building the Death Star. They built the destruction of their own meme into their own, into their own terminology. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People perceive it the way that they perceive it. And so that's what I was wrong about. I have this issue where I try to explain things that are fundamentally intuitive to people who lack the ability to pick up on it.
Have you thought about like how do you distinguish between like this is a thing that I want to fight over versus this is a thing that I don't want to fight over? So like for me personally, there are some so like I think feminist is like a word that I'll generally like if I identify as a feminist and I'm gonna have to fight on a lot of this. It's like, you know what? I feel like it's a word worth saving. Fuck it. I'll fight on this. But a term like toxic masculinity, I fully 1,000,000,000,000% believe in the concept. I actually think everybody believes in the concept of toxic masculinity, but
of course,
the phrase
hate
is just,
speech.
Sure. Yeah. Wait, what?
Hate speech is an example.
Oh, okay. A different example. Yeah. Not
like
yeah.
I'll never say like, well, that's hate speech. It's like, does hate speech exist? It's like, of course you can say horrible things, but this is partly this is why we got into the thing about Sam Hyde, about him being a Nazi or not. It's like, even if I believe, which I will remain, even if I believe that Sam Hyde is racist, which let's just say I could very easily be convinced that that's true. I'm sort of on principle, like I'm just not going to say that because I think the word has been so abused to the point where it's me saying that undermines my ability to levy more valid and useful criticism down the line.
Sure.
For the sake, like the toxic masculinity thing. It's like, also one other thing too on the Nazi thing, I'd said, I'm kind of against calling people Nazis on principle because Nazis refer to the Adolf Hitler Nazis. And then it was a couple weeks, it was before I posted the video about my thoughts on my, my undercover Zog adventure or whatever you want to call it. I did see someone that I had spoken to previously interviewing a guy with a swastika flag in his background and SS tattoos on his neck. And I was like, okay, fuck, there are Nazis, and it is appropriate to call some people Nazis. But what you're asking is, how do you know which mimetic territory is worth fighting over? And it's all case-by-case basis. It's sort of like saying, I contextualize everything in the context of a meme war, right? It's a war between ideas, and it's literally like you're playing a strategy game. It's like, how do you know, which battlefield is the best to fight a battle on? It's like, well, there's a multitude of factors, and you don't ultimately know. And with terms, like white privilege, like Jordan Peterson has a clip of him saying like, there's nothing more racist than saying white privilege because you're targeting a collective group with a crime or something like that, an ethnic group with a collective crime. And it's like, yeah, I get that point, but now you have it's a fact of the matter question. Are you better off operating in a pre-established linguistic framework, or is it better to resist it? Right, and like woke right is a perfect example. That's one right now, and like James Lindsay is the one who popularized the term woke right. Or I don't know. I think he popularized it. It's fair to say. I don't know if he coined it. But the idea was
fights over that recently.
Correct. Yes. Well, and I think he is. I don't know. I don't know why he is acting the way he is acting. I think he's making serious mistakes in how he's approaching things. Oh,
what do you mean by that? I'm curious. Or wait, finish your current thought, and then I'm actually really curious about that.
Well, yeah. Well, woke right. So the argument is, well, should people even use a term like woke right, or should just be ignored? And yeah, it's all case by case. It's like, well, it's sort of like evaluating the quality of it's like or like you were saying earlier, you can make objective statements about the quality of you didn't say this explicitly, but you like the quality of art, right? You can objectively say like some art is of higher quality than other art, right? You can kind of objectively say that.
Yeah, there are some like objective ways to define quality. So we could say a limited number of things produced by a world-renowned artist is quality, or the amount of time somebody invests. Like these are objective things that we could say is theoretically like.
Well, no, that's like Lieber theory of value ways to do it, which is lame. I'm talking like for example, you seen Game of Thrones?
Of course, unfortunately.
Okay, unfortunately, right now up until the last, I don't know exactly when it went off the rails, but let's say the last season.
Last 4 seasons.
Arguably, it was. Last 4 is too many. I think people say 2, but whatever. Fine.
I don't care what people say. After Tyrion leaves King's Landing, it's gone from that point on. But go ahead.
Fine. The point is, I would say it sort of ruined movies and TV for me because I compare everything to the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, and it never meets the criteria. I stopped watching Last of Us. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what happened. You had everyone who watched it was saying it's such a great movie or great TV show. And then everyone virtually unanimously agreed the ending was trash.
Mm-hmm.
Which indicates, okay, there must have been something objective that we can say about the ending that was different from the rest of the movie that caused this unanimous backlash. Because what other possible explanation, could it be? Was it all like everyone just hopped on the bandwagon of hating it? It's like, no, that makes no sense to anyone who's seen it. But I would say ultimately you can't know. It's not, because that's an example of you can get down to a certain level of objectivity. Like when you're evaluating music, you can say circle of fifths, it does these different things. But ultimately, like your sense, there's a point where the rubber meets the road in terms of your sense data versus the actual art you're evaluating. And that is entirely just like, it's a vibe. I mean, that's literally what I would reduce in a meme form to vibes and intuition. Like the Rick Rubin thing. You've seen the Rick Rubin interview where they ask him like, do you play any instruments? He goes, no. Do you know how to work a soundboard? No. I have no musical ability whatsoever. I just have good taste. And Rick Rubin's like one of the most successful music producers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And so taste is ultimately, you can objectively parameterize it, but it's ultimately vibes based.
Sure.
And with a term like, how do you know what term to use? It's like, it's vibes based. It's like, I don't know. Do you have a good sense of the vibes? Are you good at evaluating the vibe shift and predicting the vibe shift? And for me personally, I think I am the Rick Rubin of political meme spheres, where it's very clear to me what the vibes are, and I've seen my own predictions come true. And so that's how I would evaluate whether a term is good to use or not. It's entirely up to like my own subjective judgment, but ultimately that's what I have to trust.
Okay. That's a deeply unsatisfying answer, but
that's a deeply unsatisfying answer?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because it's an issue that I think about a lot. And if you had like a very clear cut, like, oh, this is how you know, I'd be like, oh, thanks. But
yeah, but that's kind of it's sort of like saying, are you unsatisfied because do you recognize that that's the nature of reality? Like Rick Rubin could never put into words, could never rationally articulate to someone.
No, the whole concept of taste is also deeply unsatisfying. Yeah. I would say yes, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. See, okay, this goes back to a fundamental. I don't know how you see it, but I sent you a Discord a while back. It was the Moral Foundations Theory by Jonathan Haidt.
Okay.
Before we end, I will once again encourage you to watch it. It's only 20 minutes. It's a TED Talk, but it basically outlines like how certain people are colorblind.
I've heard of that before. Yeah.
And literally, like we can be looking at the same object, and your subjective experience is fundamentally different than mine. I mean, allegedly, because we can't prove consciousness. It's like that's when you said it's fundamentally unsatisfying. It's like, no, I think it speaks to a fundamental personality difference between you and I, and not just you and I as people, but you and I in terms of the personalities that we, I don't want to say represent, but have that are distinct from each other. Where it's like, I am so okay with subjectivity and heuristics and vibes and intuitions. And I would say that's very few people would say I'm a skilled debater. Depends on the topic and if I had time enough to prepare, but I never do that.
Okay.
But I believe I'm one of the only people in this entire sphere who is capable of having calm, rational, reasonable discussions with the widest variety of types of people out there.
Sure.
Politically, personality-wise, or otherwise. I mean, this is feedback I've gotten directly from people who I
that's fine. Maybe I used a poor word, or you didn't quite get when I say it's deeply unsatisfying. What I mean is that having good taste is like a universally enviable skill, and it's deeply unsatisfying that there's not like an easy way to just look up like how do I get really good taste. That's like a process.
Do you believe you have good taste when it comes to reading the vibes, reading the political vibe shifts? Reading people, personalities, meme types, stuff like that?
I think for that type of stuff, yeah, I think I've got a pretty good intuition for it. But when it comes to like design or art or like stuff that's appealing to the eyes, it's so much work to figure out like how the amount of reading and research for like rebuilding the set downstairs and everything is like a slog fest. Artistically, like visually, I don't at all. It's and you can't just like read a thing and be like, oh cool, now I have like good visual taste. It's like a very difficult thing to do. I think you just develop it through intuition and work. But that can be said for music as well. Like there are some musicians that are extremely skilled, but their music kind of sucks. They have really bad taste, unfortunately. But yeah,
I don't think you have, from what I've observed, I don't think you have. I don't know, taste is the wrong word. I don't know. It's hard for me. I don't think you have good judgment of people when it broadly, because of the things you say about conservatives, for example, and the degree to which it seems like it undermines your own goals of, again, I don't know what your goals are, but we've had this conversation before of like, it seemed to me it's like a consequentialist type thing. It's like if you had good judgment in people's personality types and how they receive information, it would seem that, and your goal is to, I don't know, make a positive impact in the political discourse, it would seem that it's like very obvious that a lot of the things you do not serve that goal, and then I would question why.
Yeah, I understand. But we've had this conversation before. It's boring.
We've had this conversation before. True. Woke right.
Oh yeah, wait. What do you think about James Lindsay's movement?
I think it's funny. I think it's a funnier move to repurpose the term woke right in the exact opposite way that James Lindsay intended it to. As sort of a, and I mean, I don't have anything against, James Lindsay's called me woke right and quote tweeted me several times.
Damn.
Called me woke right. I don't take it personally, but he means it like the far, it's basically like right-wing critical race theory, right-wing woke is, well, yeah, woke right, but like, there's diffuse power structures, and they don't want you to know the truth, which is sort of like what Robin DiAngelo would say about white supremacy and all that. Mm-hmm. And there is some truth to that, but I think it's a better term to apply to the Douglas Murray type crowd who literally sounds like a woke SJW playing identity politics when it comes to Israel, which is
wait. I'm curious. Backing up for a second, what do you think James Lindsay's problem is right now? What do you think the problem he's experiencing is? Or why do you think he's like fighting?
I don't know. It's clear he has a problem because he keeps just, I think he's obsessive about, let me say this in a non-judgmental way. Because there's a chance he sees it. If I were talking to James Lindsay, what would I say? I think James Lindsay's personality type is one that allows him to do incredibly deep, sophisticated dives into philosophical issues, which is this whole new discourses thing, and how he became, as informed as he is on like woke ideology. But I mean, a while ago, he used to say, like 2-3 years ago, he might still say this. He would say, like, we are in the midst of a Maoist revolution. It's like, no, we are in the middle of a Maoist revolution. It is Maoism in our public schools. And it's like, sure, I get the point that he's making, but it seems to me it's very obvious when you say it's Maoism. It's sort of like saying everyone's a Nazi. Like, guys, Nazis have literally taken over. It's like, the connotation that people have with Nazi and the connotation people have with Mao is like, okay, if we're really living through a Maoist takeover, well, I'm still able to play fucking Age of Empires 2 on my computer, and my kids are fine, so who cares? So this guy's clearly exaggerating. And so I think James Lindsay has difficulty reading the normie vibe, and he's then gets too worried. He gets too, like, he thinks things are worse than they are, or at least he's not good at communicating to the normie how bad things are because he over exaggerates how bad things are. And with the woke right, it's like, I mean, obviously to steal, man, it's like, of course, there's extreme far-right anti-Semitic nonsense that's going on the far right. Mm-hmm. Genuine Nazis, as we discussed earlier. But that is not how that's not how I see the term being used to label people. I see it being used to label people like Tucker Carlson.
Wait, so backing up a bit. So try to summarize. I'm just curious. Yeah. So why do you think, I'm sorry. When I said, why do you think James Lindsay has a problem? I wasn't looking for, or I'm not looking necessarily for an explanation of like, how did he get there? But like, if he were to describe, this is my issue right now, what do you think he would say, I guess? Why is he having an issue with the right?
Oh, you mean what is James Lindsay's issue about the woke right?
Yeah, his main contention, yeah.
Yeah, that they act like woke people, that they basically say America's bad, American history is not true. It's like the 1619. I think the best one-to-one metaphor would be like the 1619 Project was the woke left's attempt to say America really is fundamentally racist, right? Because history really started in 1619.
Sure.
And the woke right, according to Lindsay, will say, well, actually, America and U.S. empire, U.S. imperial, America's really the bad guys, dropping nuclear bombs, bombing Dresden, whatever. But like, truly, America's bad, and history is a lie, and you need to wake up to the truth that there's a conspiracy against you. The woke left would say that it's white supremacy and the patriarchy is the conspiracy, and the woke right would say Jews and mainly just Jews, I think.
Okay.
And that's how James Lindsay would see it. And there's, of course, truth to that, but that's not how that term is getting used. The term is getting used to label people like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith as woke right, which is complete nonsense.
Interesting. Okay. This is my view of it, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. I feel like the issue that James Lindsay is running into is, I think, okay, this is going to come negatively loaded with a lot of current conservative stuff, so I'm sorry. I'm not trying to trigger you, okay? Or be mean, all right? Not to you, but to conservatives. I know you get mad when I'm mean to conservatives, okay? But I feel like
disappointed.
I know, disappointed. I feel like James Lindsay probably has a lot of principled positions on subjects related to, say, freedom of speech or censorship. Like, we'll just say freedom of speech. I'll just use that one example, right? And I think that when you saw the woke left, one of his big issues with the woke left was their attacks on things that were fundamentally like a part of the rule of law or like the Bill of Rights, stuff like related to the freedoms that we want to enjoy in a healthy liberal society or whatever. I think that one of the issues that James Lindsay has had is if you were a principled type conservative, and then you look and you see now what people like Elon Musk and Trump are doing when it comes to all of the legal stuff that Trump is engaged in, or like Elon Musk banning people or seemingly censoring people from X that he doesn't agree with. I think people like James Lindsay got a little bit mind-fucked because they felt like they were among friends when they were like, guys, we think censorship is bad, right? And then they're having this moment where they're like, oh shit, you guys didn't think censorship was bad. You guys just didn't like when you were being censored. But now that you're in power, now you want to censor the other people. And I'm not in good company anymore. Fuck. I feel like that's the experience that he's having.
I don't think so, because the first off, I don't know what are you referring to, like Trump censoring people criticizing Israel on college campuses, like that?
That could be one thing. Yeah, sure.
The people that James Lindsay would call the woke right are speaking out against that.
Like
what I believe the real woke right would be the people who support that and say, well, anti-Semitism is hate speech and therefore is a justification. That's what the Republicans are doing. They're saying because using anti-Semitism as a justification, we're going to censor speech. That is what I would call real woke right behavior, which is what Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith would speak out against and have spoke out against. But that's not who James Lindsay is calling the woke right. James Lindsay is calling the Tucker Carlsons and Dave Smith's woke right. Because I think Dave Smith or James Lindsay is he sees the anti-Semitic current on the right and correctly worries about it, but then incorrectly attributes to Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson that sort of level of anti-Semitism, which is, I think, self-evident nonsense.
I guess so. We could look up.
That's the mistake he's making.
We could look up tweets because I'd be curious, and I haven't seen it. So my impression of it could actually be completely wrong. If I see a few things, I'm like, oh, okay, then I just didn't understand, I guess, what his position on this was. If he's calling people like Tucker Carlson or Dave Smith part of the woke right, my guess is going to be because he sees that these figures are basically completely silent when it comes to criticizing Trump's abuse of powers against things like freedom of speech. So he's
I think this might just be a fact of the matter.
Okay.
You might have the wrong.
Yeah, I could.
impression.
That would be good because then it means my read is totally wrong. So I'd be good error correcting.
He may have. I'd be interested I would be very happy to see James Lindsay criticizing the people who are using the danger of anti-Semitism as justification to censor people. I have not. And I could be wrong. I haven't seen it, and there's I don't know how many thousands of people watching. They can look it up and send it to you. But that's not how the whole woke right debate is. Like Tucker is James Lindsay saying Tucker Carlson is woke right because Tucker Carlson often talks about all of the terrible shit that the U.S. government has done, and as justification for history as we taught it isn't necessarily true. And I think James Lindsay is pro-Israel. Which is perfectly fine to me, but then that's what's causing him to use the term incorrectly. But
so if James Lindsay is criticizing Tucker Carlson or criticizing Dave Smith, you don't think it's because of
I don't think James Lindsay has explicitly said he has said Tucker Carlson is the woke. Same with Konstantin Kisin and that whole atheist part of the IDW, like hardcore atheist IDW types.
Well, do you think it's because these people are engaging in a lot of the same kind of historical revisionist conspiratorial stuff that James Lindsay would have said the woke left kind of engaged in?
Yeah, yes, that is what he is saying. Yes, that is his claim.
Yeah, okay.
It depends on what you mean by historical revisionism, because, for example, if I were criticizing the woke left, it's like the idea that modern Black American, that on average Black Americans in the United States are still suffering from, the United States government policies. It's like that is objectively true. The problem with the woke left is that they therefore say the American ideal as such is racist to its core. Like we need to tear down America as such. Whereas when I see people like Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, it's usually rooted in America has a rich history of freedom and all that shit. But but we cannot ignore the obvious horrible shit that America has done. And the lies that it's peddled and all that, which I think is very reasonable. But then people say, oh, well, they're functionally doing this. They're criticizing U.S. imperialism or U.S. government abuses, and the woke left is doing it. So we can call them the woke right. It's like
I would be surprised if James Lindsay was criticizing Dave Smith because he was criticizing America. My guess is going to be, and we can just look this up actually because I'm curious. Yeah. My guess is going to be that he's probably criticizing him because now Dave Smith has become hardcore into all of the anti-American conspiratorialism, kind of like the left used to be.
Well, let's do the fact of the matter. What are you referring to as the anti-American?
So every time Dave Smith talks about literally anything related to U.S. history, he's always going to be quoting this guy who left the CIA revealed that there's the deep state war machine apparatus and is all anti-ordinary person. It's all military industrial complex, and every single foreign affair that the U.S. has ever been involved in has always been controlled behind the scenes by these evil, horrible people for basically everything. I think he's more nuanced than that. But I think, yes. Dave Smith? That's where the nuance starts and stops, I would say. But based on the hours and hours and hours I've listened to him, unfortunately, talk about this stuff. But
this goes back to taste and perception. It's like I've listened to many hours of him as well, and I don't have that judgment. So what is that? Either one of us is biased or both of us are. Well, we both are, but I don't get that. It's like he's very even in his. Did you watch the whole conversation with him and Douglas Murray?
Yes, I did.
Dave Smith and Douglas Murray.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. There's people. It's so interesting. It was so interesting to see all the propaganda around it of saying my side won, my side won. But I thought Dave Smith on numerous occasions very clearly said, like, yes, I criticize Bush, I criticize Obama, there's plenty of reasonable nuance that he incorporates. Again, I'm not going to be able to repeat exactly what he said, but
Sure, but like if I were to ask you, like, is there one positive thing Dave Smith has ever said about U.S. foreign policy ever?
of course, I have no doubt, even though I can't name one right now. That's simply an inability of me to recall it, but I guarantee you.
Okay.
I bet he would. I could be wrong, but I think he would say, yeah, by and large, fighting the Nazis and defeating the Nazis and defeating Japan.
My guess is going to be that if he would say it, I can
all kinds of qualification, like
exactly.
we shouldn't have dropped nuclear bombs. That's
even
fine.
when we interfered in World War II, that was just because we wanted to nuke the Japanese. And even when we did World War II, we didn't even know about the concentration camps. That was just America defending. Like he would say shit like this, right? He would. It would be.
You are exercising what I regard as your poor taste in human relations, because that is not a very convincing caricature of Dave. You can do caricatures of people.
Okay, I think
but that one I don't think is particularly good.
So like I googled this because I was just curious. For James Lindsay, Dave Smith, this is like the first tweet that came up. There might be others. So in here we have a tweet of James Lindsay, and so he's quote tweeting Dave Smith, and James Lindsay's tweet says, "Why is Dave Smith less insightful than the Washington Post opinion page?" And then I click through and I see Dave Smith's tweet is. He's quote tweeting James Lindsay, and Dave Smith is saying, "This is the equivalent of me going to Kansas and saying it's Brooklyn, and then when someone corrects me, James jumps in to say that since I'm from Brooklyn, I can't be corrected. It's a ridiculous non-argument." And then let me click through for James's tweet. Oh my God, fuck! I fucked up. I should have read all this first. Sorry, I didn't realize how far back this went. James says,
I will say,
by the Cultural Revolution is telling people what's happening here. Now mirrors her experience. So it's a good thing Dave Smith here to Hill. She's only wrong. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say, as a general rule of thumb, I do not make judgment of people based on tweets. I make judgment of people based when video is available. There's a lot of implicit.
Oh, sure, yeah, I agree. But I'm just trying to. But like, there are a couple tweets.
Most of my. Go ahead.
There are a couple tweets that he could make that would instantly dispel my current thoughts about him, or there are tweets I could see that would reinforce my thoughts about who he considers like woke right or something.
Maybe. Well, let me ask. I mean, maybe we can narrow it down. But let me ask you. I think I saw actually someone sent me. I tweeted a clip from that Dave Smith, Douglas Murray conversation, and it was I said this is what James Lindsay retweeted me. Fucking terminology. It should have always stayed Twitter. I said, I used to believe the woke right was a ridiculous label, but I now realize I'm wrong. The woke right is real, and Douglas Murray is their leader. And it's a 3-minute clip of Douglas Murray essentially saying that because Dave Smith brought up Paul Wolfowitz, who was the deputy defense secretary under Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Pearl and Paul Wolfowitz, that Douglas Murray said like 4 times. It's weird. It's weird that you're bringing up people with Jewish last names. It's like that's the definition of the woke right playing woke identity politics, except instead of using anti-black racism as their rallying call, it's anti-Semitism. It's like you can. So for Dave Smith to even quote Paul Wolfowitz, the Secretary of Defense, Deputy Defense Secretary, is somehow like, oh, maybe that's vaguely anti-Semitic. And it's a 3-minute clip, and the clip, there's a reason it went viral, is because it's just so self-evident that Douglas Murray is engaging in exactly the kind of woke identity politics that James Lindsay would criticize the left of engaging in.
Do you think that if you had a party, you wanted to come to my apartment, you enter, I see you, you're wonderful, okay, product-infused hair, okay, you're stunning 6'4", shredded body. You come in, you've got 3 white friends with you, and you're like, hey, I got some more friends coming over, like, this is cool. And I'm like, yeah, cool, let's party. You're here, a few white chicks come by, a couple more white friends come by, and then finally one dude comes through, and he's a black guy, and I see him, and then, we're chilling, I think, and I go to you and it's like, hey, just making sure, like, that guy's not gonna, like, take anything, right? I haven't really said, like, I hate black people, I don't trust black people or anything else, but at the very least, would that give you a little bit of pause, where you'd be like,
Can I say 2 things?
Yeah, you can say 3 things.
Yes.
Whatever you want. Yeah, go for it.
Yes, 100%. I'd go like, what's going on? That's the first thing I would say.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I would say is, this is perhaps the worst analogy I've ever heard in my life if you're comparing that to what Dave Smith was doing with Paul Wolfowitz.
Okay. The issue with a lot of the kind of dog whistling stuff, I don't even want to call it dog whistling because that term's been used. See how I'm abandoning the defense of that term? Sure. I think what Douglas Murray was getting at was there's this constellation of activities that I'm not being anti-Zionist. I'm not saying the Jews did 9/11, but I'm saying the Mossad was definitely involved. I'm not saying it's every single Jew is doing this, but like Dershowitz has a certain objective here. I'm not saying that Israel controlled us and did this, but I'm saying it was convenient that we went after Iraq. I'm not saying that Zog and our government is controlled by Zionist foreign policy, but there were 7 countries listed by Israel that the U.S. has now been like. I think when you do that over and over and over again, I think it behooves you to explain or at some point you should be at least aware of how it looks. And I think to act like kind of clueless, where it's like, well, why would you even think anything here? Yeah, I think that was kind of what Douglas Murray was pointing out, I think.
And Dave Smith responded very correctly, I think, by saying, yeah, look, I'll just ask you this.
Wait, you'll ask me this, or he said I'll ask you this?
No, separate.
Okay.
To the point of well, but hey, I'm not saying it's the Jews, but I'm blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, this is the argument that people make about race and IQ statistics. It's like, who loves to bring up race and IQ statistics? The white supremacists. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm not saying it's blah, 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 whatever, but they love to bring up, people who self-identify as black score lower on IQ tests on average than people who self-identify as white. It's like and that is an objective fact. That is. Okay. So it's like, okay, because people who say that, and it's true that at least I mean, I don't know how the race and IQ discourse is going. I don't follow it too closely, but I would not be surprised if most of the people who talk about this issue are the racists who like to just, beat it home all the time.
Yeah.
Fine, that's true. That's a real worry we have to consider. That in no way, shape, or form dismisses the reality of the fact, nor the importance of bringing it up in order to address the fundamental issue. Because, for example, with the race and IQ statistics, the guy that popularized that, Charles Murray, who is branded as a Nazi and all that, has said explicitly to Coleman Hughes, black guy, by the way.
I know, I interviewed him, yeah.
Yeah, the cultural component of the gap between race and IQ is big, is significant. So now we can say, okay, all right, so there is a gap, but we, at minimum, the guy who's been tarred a racist says there's a massive cultural component, which means we can do something about it. And so by being armed with that fact, we can now better diagnose the problem and therefore better allocate resources. Like, for example, instead of saying, well, we're not going to acknowledge there's a race and IQ gap there, and therefore it must be because of discrimination, because why else, right? It's like, so now we're going to spend all this money on DEI and useless nonsense, which, if the problem was discrimination, you could in theory make a case that DEI would address it, even though it doesn't in practice, but at least in theory. But that's not the problem. The problem is the environmental factors that differentiate race and IQ. So how about we take all the money that was going to DEI programs, right, the $2.5 million that goes to Bosnia, DEI from USAID, and we put it towards early childhood nutrition or getting the fucking lead out of the water, the fact that there's lead in any water at all whatsoever. To the degree there is, I don't know how much there is, but these are the arguments that are made. It's like, by acknowledging real facts, even if they are difficult, and even if there's a terrible amount of ideological rot that accompanies those facts, it's like, yeah, but those facts are important in being able to improve the world. It's very much like a video game, right? The best sword is the one that damages yourself 1 health per second. Okay.
Sure.
That does a lot of damage to other people. So it's like, if you want that sword, you need to be able to wield it, and you need to be able to do the things that, stop you from going down that ideological rot. And just to put a pin on it, with Dave Smith in particular, the reason I think it's a nonsense argument is because, one, Dave Smith is Jewish, and if you listen, as I do, to the far-right anti-Semites, they're very clear that Dave Smith is Jewish, and they don't like him for that. So the idea that Dave Smith is even inadvertently he's fomenting anti-Semitism against himself.
To be clear,
Dave Smith, what is a very mainstream
does
critique
not get attacked on the related to Jewish stuff in anywhere near the same way that actual neo-Nazis do it. People will use it as a insult, but Dave Smith is very clearly not part of the Zoggeist or whatever.
Okay, I have talked to people who could very well be self-identify as Nazis, National Socialists, and they're very clear that Dave Smith, because he's a Jew, it's in his genetics, he's philo-Semitic, he's a problem. Tucker Carlson's controlled opposition, by the way. His dad was CIA.
Sure.
So the what I would regard as the faction of the far right that is genuinely anti-Semitic and genuinely poses a threat, absolutely. I mean, that's the side of the right that I'm worried about, and they hate Dave Smith, which is in part why I dismiss the criticism that he's fomenting anti-Semitism.
Sure.
Now, you could make a case though that still you need to have a responsibility to talk about it more, and maybe.
Sure.
But
The thing that I'm saying is that you have to, if you're making arguments and you understand that all of these arguments are in service of something far more insidious, to act aloof or confused or whatever when somebody brings that up, I think looks really bad. It makes me feel like I'm not dealing with an honest actor. And I think that was the big issue when I was watching Dave Smith try to argue with Douglas Murray, is Dave was just acting incredulous that like, what? You're accusing me of furthering anti-Semitic stuff? Why? Just because I'm bringing up these things and I'm aligned with Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll and all these, like, well, that's okay. Like, I mean, so what? I can't talk about these things. Like, there are going to be conversations. A really good one is around qualifications. Obviously, that was probably one of the things that blew up the most from that conversation when they talked about, like, are you qualified to talk about a particular issue? If I were to, do you have qualifications?
Expertise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like probably the most extreme version of this in my life probably would have been the Israel-Palestine debate with Muin Rabbani, Norman Finkelstein, Benny Morris, right? You know this, yeah.
Yeah.
So going into this environment, I know that I am severely lacking in qualifications, and I know that if somebody were to press me on this, if somebody were to say like, hey, why the fuck are you even here at all? I'm not going to act like incredulous. How dare you ask me that question? In my mind, that's an incredibly obvious question. You've got at least one really well-renowned historian. You've got Norman Finkelstein, who's probably the most popular published author about this. Muin Rabbani seems to be informed on the issue. Like, yeah, I definitely seem like the odd one out. And I would expect going into any environment that I'm going to have a list, or I'm going to need to prepare justification for like why the fuck I'm even here. That would make sense to me, you know? So when...
Yeah, this is...
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, when Dave Smith gets kind of pressed a little bit by Douglas Murray on like the qualifications thing, that's a super fair question. And I think that... Agreed. But Dave Smith like gets offended over it, basically. He's like, what do you mean? I'm not qualified.
No, that's not my read of it. He says... Well, first off, what you just said a few seconds ago, you're like, I wouldn't say how dare you ask me the question. I don't think Dave Smith said, how dare you ask me if I'm qualified or not. He made the point of, look, I'm an American. This is the media landscape. I'm free to talk about what I want.
But that's not really what he's doing.
Is it a good argument? No, I don't.
Well, no. It's an
not
evasive
necessarily.
argument. It's evasive. Because what they want to do is they want to live in the world of I'm just a comedian and LOL versus
correct.
I'm brought here to talk about Israel, Palestine. And he is. Dave Smith is shipped around a lot on all of these
100%.
podcasts from show to show because of Joe Rogan validating him. But then when he gets pressed on his credentials, he acts incredulous. Like, well, I'm just a normal American. I can just say whatever I want.
Okay, but to your broader point, like with the debate with Norman Finkelstein and Benny Morris and Muin, ultimately your credentials don't matter. What matters is, are you in possession of the truth or not?
Kind of.
Argue on the facts.
Kind of, yeah. But I'm aware of the norms and I'm aware of the loading going into that environment.
That's fine. Yes.
But I'm gonna be aware of that, and I'm going to address that topic carefully, and because I think it's a valid question.
Okay, fine. Again, I perceived him as addressing the issue more, like reasonably. Like, look, I'm telling you the arguments. Like what's the you've never been. It's like that's not. It's like Dave Smith, and I kind of hate this because this is a libertarian meme. I think it comes from argumentation ethics, and I think Stefan Molyneux popularized it. But he said that's not an argument. That's not an argument. I hate it because it's very debate bro, rational brained, and I'm all about vibes. But like at a certain point, it is true. Like saying you've never been, and I would agree. Dave's, I mean, if I were talking to Dave Smith, I'd be like, Dave, you do seem to care about this issue a lot. Why wouldn't you go?
Sure, but like I think
don't you? Like, I'm sure he would agree it undermines his ability to communicate his idea.
Well, maybe, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like argumentatively, I think it's a fair question, and I would address it, right? I've talked a lot about Israel Palestine. Like, if I have been. Sorry, bad example. But like if I had before I had gone or whatever, right? Then I would say like, yeah, there might be some additional perspective that I could gain on the ground that I might not have access to because I just read stuff or watch stuff. In that case, that's a blind spot I have. I acknowledge it, and then we talk from there. And if you feel like there's some argument that I'm making that's undermined because I haven't been there, you can point that out to me since you've been there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's
yeah,
it.
I did it.
I would never like.
I agree.
I would never fight on that point. Like, who cares if I've never been there? That doesn't matter. Just argue the blah blah blah. I think I just think I think that it shows something. Like I say this a lot with social niceties, right? Like if you don't want to shake somebody's hand because you're opposed to handshakes, you have the right to do that. But it's very strange for you to act confused when people are offended that you aren't shaking their hand, and you should be prepared to defend that or you explain that, right?
Sure, to the degree, and I like, this is a function of you don't like Dave Smith and I like Dave Smith, so we're both biased, including myself too. And so I guess to the degree that Dave Smith did what you are doing, which I have seen him, I believe I can't think of an example. Some Dave Smith fans commented on my video reviewing the debate that they were butthurt about this because I had said, I've seen when Dave Smith says I'm just a comedian, I just play at nightclubs or whatever. That's kind of a weak defense.
I don't like you saying when you say weak defense. I don't think it's a weak.
As in it's wrong. It's
dishonest. Evasive. It's evasive. It's dishonest. Yeah, I think it's different than a weak defense. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Okay.
Like a weak defense would be like it doesn't matter if I've been there or not.
Interesting.
Right?
I mean, I don't mean weak. I mean weak morally. I don't mean weak. In terms of rhetoric.
Okay.
So in that sense, agree. But the reason Dave Smith is less so, at least in the context of woke right. My fundamental point was Douglas Murray very clearly engaged in sort of woke right identity politics. Did you see, this is a separate thing, did you see the clip of the rabbi testifying in Congress saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic, you have to be anti-Semitic?
No, that's pretty funny though.
It's hilarious because exactly to your point, and you need... Far be it from me to arm you in your fight against the conservatives, Destiny. As you know, I get very upset when you criticize them. But if you want to just throw shit in conservatives' face, particularly the Trump-supporting conservatives, you can ask why. I mean, there's literally a clip of a rabbi in Congress saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic; you have to be anti-Semitic. It was a anti-Semitism task force. Republican senator invited this rabbi. That rabbi, by the way. I don't know how close he is to Trump. He's close enough where he was the rabbi there was like a national day of prayer and there's all these different religious leaders and that was the rabbi who was invited.
Okay.
Among with that one crazy evangelical lady that Trump has. So this guy is verbatim Ibram X. Kendi talking points and not like they're saying this, it's making the exact same argument. It's we're not against free speech, but when it comes, if it's facilitating anti-Semitism, that's not about free speech. It's about Jewish safety on campus or whatever.
Okay.
It's like, that's fucking nonsense. And the fact that not and many conservatives did, including Matt Walsh, who I suspect will leave, my bet will be he leaves the Daily Wire within, what are we at, May right now?
Ooh, okay.
4 months. What is that, September? By September, Matt Walsh will leave the Daily Wire.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson might be too far gone, but we'll see. Or the Daily Wire is going to dissolve because what's his name stepped down, which would be hilarious in my opinion because I don't like the Daily Wire. But anyway, that's the woke right. The people the conservatives who would go, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with a rabbi coming in and saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic. You have to be anti-Semitic, which. It's not even that what he's saying per se. I mean, I disagree with that, but it's the utter sheer hypocrisy of like every Trump-supporting conservative would say, Ibram X. Kendi, fuck that guy, woke critical race theory bullshit. It's like you are ducking the eggs of people who 100% believe that and invite rabbis to testify that. But you don't seem upset by that.
I don't even think anti-Semitism is a real problem on the right. I don't think that's a thing at all. But that's fine. I don't think. You
don't think anti-Semitism is a real problem on the right?
Not right now. No.
I don't
think Trump is anti-Semitic. And,
no, Trump is not anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and I think the entire politically effective right takes orders from Trump. So
interesting. This is another constant argument I get in with people of like, well, right now, like I was arguing with Soy Pill, his name is,
Okay.
who's a competent person, much to my chagrin. But he was like, I was like, yeah, the reason I make the meme about radical centrism is because, broadly speaking, the extreme right and the extreme left are wrong on a lot of things, but also make valid points that need to be synthesized. And so I'm radical in that I agree with the far right on some things and I agree with the far left on some things, but centrist in that I'm not going down the full religious fundamentalist white supremacist nonsense or full moral relativist hedonist progressive nonsense. And people are like, well, but the people who want no immigration, that's not a real political faction. It's like, yeah, not right now, but things change very rapidly. And so like the anti-Semitic right, it's like, I don't, who knows what it would manifest in terms of like how it would harm Jews. But the idea Kanye West just came out with the fucking, unfortunately, objectively very catchy song. It's like, that's normalizing shit that was very not good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that the right could slide into it, but not with Trump as the leader. And I think that whole movement is going to come flying apart at the seams as soon as Trump is gone. I feel like 100%. The left has prepared their environment way better right now for some insane anti-Semitism that they have to worry about, or maybe won't. But also, I think that Israel's behavior now that Trump is in office and they see him as like their daddy makes me unsympathetic towards him anyway. So fuck it, I don't care.
That's fair. Who do you think is the leaders of the left-wing anti-Semitism? Like Hassan?
I think that the far left. I'm looking at political figures and cultural stuff on the left right now, not necessarily elected leadership. I think that the issue is the weird like oppressor-oppressee dynamics on literally fucking everything makes it so it's just very easy to be anti-Semitic in everything but name, basically. So people who say things like, I'm not anti-Semitic, but what was Hassan's statement? Anybody who supports the concept of the nation of Israel doesn't deserve to walk a dog or something, or all of Israel is like a racist, ethnic supremacist society, and all of Zionism is built on this, and like, the Hamas October 7th attacks were beautiful, and it's a valid resistance movement, and like statements like this, like when you make enough of them, are pretty like, it's a little bit spooky, a little bit unhinged, but
Interesting. I agree that anti-Semitism on the left is a real danger. I would say the left does have mechanisms that are built into its ideology that allow it to resist it a bit more, which is hypersensitivity around, racism broadly. Like racism is the sin on the left.
Only against minority classes, though.
Well, true, of course. White people, it's fucking open season, no problem.
Yeah,
that's
but
fine.
It's funny. It's
but
so
I mean,
funny. Somebody should find the clip of this. I know it's somewhere. Somebody should find the clip of this. Or it might even be me typing in chat. I think I made the joke, or I was defending something along the lines of like, because we were getting real sensitive about anti-Semitism or something because of the alt-right. And I said something about, I either called Dan the K word or something, or I made some Jew joke about Dan. And I think I don't remember if I was typing this seriously or ironically, but I was like, well, hold on. When we talk about racism, or when we talk about, attacking groups, what we really talk about, when we talk about a minority group, we talk about somebody who has minority power. So Jews wouldn't really be a minority in that case, right? Because don't they have a majority of the banking, a majority of the entertainment, a majority of the government? So in that case, I should be able to be anti-Semitic since the Jews are in power, right? And I made that like kind of joke. This is like 10 years old in my chat. Somebody might have the log somewhere. But the left, unironically, kind of has that position now. The far left, or at least the online left commentators, which is kind of weird, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's. I would say on second thought, while the left does have mechanisms that are inherently, at least on the face of it, anti-racist. Mm-hmm. It's easy to associate Jews with white people. You can just call Jews white people, and then it's cool to be racist towards them.
Exactly, kind of, yeah. Like for a long time, I thought the left was. Somebody pointed this out to me, and I'd never forget this. For a long time, I thought the left was very much opposed to anti-Semitism because of their stances against like neo-Nazis and stuff. But in reality, that left really only cared about white supremacy. They didn't actually care about anti-Semitism. They just didn't like neo-Nazis or whatever people because they were white supremacists.
Jordan Peterson was right all along. The extremists on the left are not sympathetic to the marginalized. They just hate those who they perceive as doing the marginalization.
But then, yeah,
it's true.
Usually that goes hand in hand, yeah. But yeah. Maybe, yeah. Not good. It's a problem, but
I have one other topic.
yeah, what's up?
I told Pisco, I said, I don't believe that you should be able to vote in the United States if you cannot name the three branches of government.
Okay.
Is that fascist?
Fascist?
Yes
No,
or
I
no?
don't think so. No.
Okay.
Why? There's no way he said that was fascist, right?
No, I don't think he did. No, he said that in and of itself is not. Yeah, correct. But I just find it interesting because, first off, and maybe I'm, yeah, because people, they love democracy. And I love democracy for the outcomes it produces, not in and of itself.
Okay.
And if the environment changes so much so that we need to alter the structure of our democracy, then I'm fine with that. Now, people would very immediately say, alter the structure of our democracy. That's straight out of a Hitler playbook or something like that. It's like, okay, cool, fine. It's like, again, going back to the race and IQ statistics or whatever. It's like, yes, I have no doubt that people who use the same words or phrases I use are bad people who want bad things. But that doesn't change the fact that it's possible and arguably good and necessary to agree with bad people on certain things when they're correct. And
sure. I mean, I would argue that that's literally built into our system. Like, definitionally, we don't think that democracy is the best idea. That's why it's so limited in so many ways by things like the federal government,
or like the Supreme Court. Like, do you agree the Supreme Court is I didn't ask Pisco this. Do you agree that the Supreme Court is compromised ever since the immunity ruling?
Compromised? No, but I severely disagree with some of the rationalizations they're using.
Well, but broadly, I would say it is. Here. I believe that reality is set up such that 9 unelected appointed justices, who essentially by complete random chance are appointed in whatever by whatever president happens to be in charge at the time and who happens to die at whatever time. Mm-hmm. Like, the idea that 9 people ultimately are, a 5-4 decision can determine the entire fate of a nation. It's like, that's primitive. I'd call that a high priesthood. And does it work? Yeah, of course. The fact that our society is as good as it is proof that it works so far. But the idea that, we live in a very different information landscape, and there is a lot of stupid people. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I'm for restricting voting rights. Dumb people should not be allowed to vote. People go, this guy's a fucking closeted fascist, and it's like,
I think that there are a lot of hurdles
so.
to get over because of the types of people that would be excluded through any kind of testing. But I will say that the only way that I would ever agree, the only way that I would ever agree to any type of testing is the testing needs to basically exclusively revolve around civics questions. In that case, I think I would be kind of okay with it.
Yeah, and you could even do things like, you create the test in such a way that both Republicans and Democrats cannot accurately guess who created the test. Right? So you get
but I would say, I think the question should be even more big. Like, you shouldn't be able to tell who created a test that's asking you, like, how many Supreme Court justices are there?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like if I ask, how many Supreme Court, what are the 3 branches of government? Yeah, I'd be fine with that. And that's an example of, I don't think voting rights are sacred. I don't think democracy is sacred. I think those are means to an end. And the end is whatever positive human flourishing. There's someone emailed me. I'm going to actually try and reach out to him. And maybe I don't know, you might have talked about this before.
Maybe you've
talked to the guy.
I emailed you on a different name.
No.
Did it say Charles?
Maybe. Chuck.
Oh, okay. That would have been impressive if I guessed that.
There's a guy who talked to Alex O'Connor. He's a philosopher, and I think he made a book called like Against Democracy.
Okay.
And he basically outlined like, you could very easily envision a world where we treat voting rights as like having a license to practice being a doctor. Mm-hmm. Like, no one says that you should just be allowed to be a doctor, like just start operating on people. Like, you have to get a license, you have to prove competency. You could imagine a world where we do the same thing with voting. And I think that's fine. But all right, well, good.
Email.
I'm glad that fascism is slowly becoming normalized. I'm very happy. This works in my benefit.
Well, it's a Trump America, so.
True, he started it.
Okay. Well, anything else, buddy?
Not really.
Okay. Well, hey, I love you. Stay safe. Be careful. And we will... Oh.
Please do not say that you love me.
Why?
It feels like it's gaslighting.
Okay. I care about you. Stay safe. Be careful.
I believe that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Have
I
fun.
do care about you as well, Destiny. I do
Thank
want
you.
the best for you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I think the best for you really would improve the world. And I mean that in the least, even though my tone does not always convey it, I do mean that in the least ironic way possible.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Have fun.
Godspeed, sir.
Bye.
Peace.
Okay.